So, what if your business's biggest problem is not failure or lack of money, but actually success? It's an interesting concept that we're going to explore today with the man who wrote the book on the subject, Larry Mandelberg. And Larry, it is great to have you on the Wealthability Show.
It's great to be here, Tom. Thank you.
So, if you can, Larry, give us this is such a it seems contrarian idea, right? That businesses, the book is, by the way, is businesses don't fail, they commit suicide, how to survive success and thrive in good times and bad times. What brought you to this particular topic? I know you write a lot about leadership, but why is it that you think success and where'd you get this idea that success is the problem, not the solution?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm fifth generation of family-owned business. We started in the 1850s in hides and furs. Over the last couple of almost 2 decades, I like to say I've got 180 years of experience because my family was very proactive about paying forward their knowledge. That journey that my family took them through multiple businesses in multiple economic environments, radical change, and we're able to not only survive, but to thrive through those changes. The last iteration of the business was it's called the automotive aftermarket. There's two automotive markets. There's the new car market and what they call the aftermarket, which is when cars are sold. We were in the aftermarket. We had a machine shop. We sold auto parts, stuff like that. One day, my dad said to me, it was early teens. He said to me, how in the world did we go from 0 automobile manufacturers to over 300 and then down to 3 in like 25 years? How did that happen? And while he was wrong on the specifics, he was generally accurate. And that got my attention, and it got it in an interesting way. It didn't get it in terms of the car manufacturers. It got it in terms of, why does any business fail? I mean, why? Why do they fail? And that then led to, in the late 60s and early 70s, the common theme was, if you have a startup and you can make it 3 years, you'll survive.
Right.
And I thought that was just stupid. It's stupid. Startups need other people's money. If they all die in 3 years or live forever, people are going to find out what's magic about 3 years and fix it. Other people's money's involved here. I set out on a journey. 23 years of primary research, academically rigorous, statistically valid, to find out why a specific demographic of business fails. Couldn't study all of them. It's too big a market. That was my passion. And my vision is to change the way business works so that everybody that wants a job has one and loves it, and everybody that has employees loves them and treats them properly. And it's easy to do if you build a sustainable business. I could go on forever, but that
Right.
was what you asked me.
That's awesome. Thank you, Larry. So, what is it about success that you think causes challenges for business owners, entrepreneurs? What you get past, that. I mean, the general rule is, the reality is, I don't know about 3 years and you've succeeded, but I do know that my experience with clients as a CPA is that the first year people lose money, the second year they break even, and the third year, if they're still in business, then they start turning a profit. That's a very common cycle. Okay. Right. Now what they do after that, whole different animal. Okay. But what is it that you think it is about success that causes this challenge for the leaders of the business?
So there's a concept, or what I'll call a theory, called corporate life cycle theory. And it's not about corporations, it's more about organizations. And it's the study of how they age and grow and die. And it's as precise and accurate as the study of how human beings age and grow and die. It's not perfect. We get our baby teeth, we lose our baby teeth at about the same age, but not exactly. We go through puberty at about the same age, but not exactly. people go gray at about the same time, but not, I mean, it's because businesses are people and the way they evolve are the same. Now, what I found is that organizations exist in one of three stages of maturity. And I'm going to give you the answer here in just a sec, but bear with me. Maturity is a measure of expertise, experience, not expertise. It's not about knowledge. It's not about capacity. It's not about ability. It's about experience. Been there, done that. That's very important. Youth is narrow and shallow experience. Adolescence is narrow and deep experience. We don't know a lot about a lot of things, but we know a lot about what we do. And adulthood is broad and deep experience. Every transition through one of those stages of maturity occurs the same way. It's what I call the arc of success. And this is the answer to your question. It always begins with an idea. Think about a startup. Got a great idea, great product, great service. People need it. People want it. They'll pay for it. We can make money. Great idea. And this is true throughout all the stages of maturity. You get a new idea and you try it. If it works, it creates growth. Growth leads to more growth, and that growth leads to complexity. Complexity leads to the need for controls. Controls create a loss of flexibility. Mm-hmm. And when an organization loses its ability to be flexible, the people that make it function have the environment they're operating in modified, and they don't tend to like it. So it creates friction. And all of those things are elements of change. So what happens is, as you're successful, you're accelerating in your pace of change faster than the world around you, because you're accelerating it, right, with a catalyst called success. And because people go through these things and haven't had the experience, they struggle. That's why it's hard. Now, you were talking about startups, and here's the interesting thing with startups. You're talking about that tax cycle, right? If you go to a startup, and I mean a raw, brand new startup that's started by people who have started other startups and been through the journey and failed and succeeded, they're usually profitable in year one because they have the experience. That's where the difficulty comes from, is all the change. Does that make sense?
Somewhat.
How do you manage 20 employees? It's different than 30. It's different than 50. Fair. How do you manage 10 customers? How do you manage 50 customers? How do you manage 500 customers? It changes the way the organization operates.
For sure. So then the logical follow-up question is, so what do you do about that? Because that is as you get bigger, I mean, the idea of most successful businesses, not all, some successful businesses stay about the same size forever, and they're always profitable and they're good, and because they've got that experience, right? But then there are, entrepreneurs who like to, it's kind of in your blood that what you want to do is you want to grow, right? You want to do more. You have a bigger mission. You want to accomplish more. You want to serve more people. If the goal is that you serve more people, and that by doing so you become more effective, the question is, okay, how do you then manage those changes? Because 100% agree, and I see it, and I've seen it over and over again that, for example, in my industry, there's a very big difference once you get over 20. Okay. And between 20 and 100 is actually no man's land, because you are never as profitable at 50 as you are at 20. And you have to get to 100 to be more profitable. That is simply the way the mechanics of the industry works. And so then the question is, okay, so you want to get to 40, 50, but you want to sustain. What is it that you have to do in order to sustain that growth and that success, so that you can get over whatever that hump is, whether that number is 50 or 100 or whatever?
Right. So there are two ways to answer that question. And one of them is from a let's call it a 10 to 50,000 foot perspective, where we take into account the context and the variables. And one is from a 100,000 foot level, where we take into to account the overarching philosophical approach of the organization on its journey. Now, I can talk about both, but for this, I want to talk about the high level, the 100,000 foot, because that's where I like to be. First of all, there are three operational imperatives. And before we can even get to that, we have to be clear on something. Does the leadership team, whether it's a single entrepreneur or a board of 30, does the leadership team have a desire for generational success? If the leadership team does not want the organization to survive the transition of leadership to the next group of leaders, then all that we're talking about is irrelevant. This is only relevant if we're talking about long-term sustainability. That's the first premise. The second premise is, if you're not growing, you're dying. Another way to think about it is, if you're not going up, you're going down, right? And the reason for that is that people die, industries change, the value of your products and services diminishes over time. So if you're not finding some way to grow, whether it's products, services, revenue, market share, geographic presence, I don't care what it is, some form of growth, okay? So the premise is, you got to want to continue, have the organization continue on. Number two, you have to grow in some way. So the way you do it is with three operational imperatives. And the first one is what I call clarity of purpose.
Okay.
And that's what clarity of purpose has three components. The first is, we understand the value we deliver, the market we deliver it to, and how we deliver it. That's step one of clarity of purpose. Who's our market? What's our value? How do we get our value to our market? Step number two of clarity of purpose is, how do we want our organization to operate? What is the culture of our organization? Do we want a command and control operation? Do we want a rules-based organization? Do we want an organization based upon emotional wants and needs? What do we want? How do we want to operate as a company? Because this is critical to recruiting and retaining talent. And the third piece of clarity of purpose is, quite simply, what's our long-term goal? What's our long-term goal? Mine is no more help wanted ads. Like I said, everybody that wants a job has one. Every employer loves their staff. Those are the three pieces. Almost all startups have none of those. They think they know they have value, and they think they know who the market is. They don't have answers to anything else. They're struggling. So that's step one. And the beauty of having that clarity is that you're no longer saying, I'll sell anything to anybody. You're saying, I know who this is valuable for and who I'm going to go sell. Step two, consistency of performance. If I can't perform consistently, I can't make commitments to you and live up to them. You can't trust me. You go to McDonald's, lousy food. You order a Big Mac, you know what container it's coming in. They put it down in a quarter pounder box there, and you say, that's, I mean, you don't have to read it. People that go to McDonald's know what the packaging looks like. We're talking, they have a university to teach people how to make hamburgers, right? That's consistency of performance. This has nothing to do with quality. This has to do with being able to plan short-term, prepare, communicate with your market, tell them what you're going to do it, and make sure everybody's job is clear and understood. Consistency of performance. The third operational imperative is engagement of people. If you don't have people who are engaged, then you don't have people who care about the company. And what happens over time is, as an organization grows, because remember, if you're not growing, you're dying. So we're making the assumption that they're growing, and it's taking time to mature through these stages and develop all these tools to ensure clarity of purpose, consistency of performance. And now what you have is a leadership team that's got distance, both physical and intellectual, from the end users of their products and services. And as that industry tends to shift, because all industries shift, if leadership doesn't understand how that industry is shifting, they can't adapt their products and services to sustain the value to those markets, and those markets leave those companies behind.
So,
When
so
you have clarity, engagement of people, that conduit of communication becomes organic. So it's clarity of purpose, consistency of performance, engagement of people.
okay, so let me ask the natural follow-up question to that, which is, so how does the leadership team, how do they recognize that those changes, that risk, what's going on in their market? How do they recognize that faster? Obviously, the you were just mentioning engagement of people.
Mhm.
They're willing to tell you. Okay, so they
Mhm.
have to be willing to tell you,
Mhm.
but they also have to see it. And what
Right.
happens, if they don't see it and you're depending on them to see it because you're not on the front line. So how do you get them to be, I guess my question is, how do you get them to be looking for it? Because that's actually, I
Right.
think that's the key, is they have to look for it and not assume that everything tomorrow is going to be the same as it is today.
Right. Well, you're sucking me from the 100,000 foot down closer to 10,000. And without more context, it's harder to answer, but there are some basics.
That'll work.
So, pardon?
That'll work.
Yeah.
Basics are good.
So, what you're talking about are so I have an assessment tool. There are 8 components that measure where you are maturity wise. There are 8 components. There are 3 components of youth, 3 components of adolescence, and 2 components of adulthood. I have this survey. It takes about 5 minutes. You get the book. It's in the back of the book. You go online. It ranks all 8 of them for your organization in order of weakest to strongest. So it tells you where to start working. The 2 elements of adulthood are systems and structure and communication plan. What systems and structure are all about is helping people understand that they are a critical component of the organization. Whether you're the janitor or the receptionist or anywhere in between, it helps them see how the company is dependent on them being successful, right? If you have a grunt work job, then that job should not exist. You should not have anybody doing anything that's not important to the company. And it's like a house. Most people don't like to clean the house, but if you don't clean the bathroom, you're going to have a pretty ugly bathroom. So every piece of what goes on in an organization at one point or another is critical. And those people have to feel like they're a part of what makes that organization successful. All of this links back to clarity of purpose, and it links back to consistency of performance in terms of understanding your role. Your role is not to take out the trash. Your role is to keep the office clean. That's one half systems and structure. I understand where my work comes from. I understand where my work goes, and I know what the people around me do with that. So if I see a way to do something better, or if I have a client who needs something, I know who to go to get that fixed. The second piece is communication plans. Communication plans are absolutely critical for 2 reasons. Number one, you need to make sure it's crystal clear to everybody within your organization how they go about getting information when they need it. Number two, they need to know you need to be able to get information to them anytime you want to get information that's important out to them. So it's about making sure that as an employee of the company, if I have a question, I know how to get it answered. And if I have something I need to know, I know it when I need to know it. It's tricky. It sounds simple. It ain't. When you do those 2 things, I now feel like I'm a critical part of the company. I have the information. I understand what our business plan is. I understand what our marketing plans are. I understand my roles in those. I understand why we exist. I understand what our value is. I understand our culture. And I understand how to tell people what they need to know. So when I see something, this is my company. It's making my job successful. I'm part of the team. I'm going to tell the right people, and it's going to get to leadership. And I've seen this work over 30 years. It works. It may sound corny. And again, this is not my intellectual capital. This is research.
So I love that. Thank you, Larry. So one of the things I see in organizations is sometimes a fear of being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If is this what they want to hear? Is this, that whole political drama baloney that we see over,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've seen 100,000 times in organizations. How do you change? I want to go back to the idea of culture that you
Mm-hmm.
were talking about under clarity of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
culture and operations. How do you establish that and make sure and facilitate to making sure that people feel like, hey, it's okay to be wrong, right? The systems aren't so structured that
Mm-hmm.
doing something contrary to the the
Yeah.
system or the manual or whatever is not
Yeah.
frowned upon. I mean, in a McDonald's, it's clearly frowned upon, right?
Right.
There's a number of steps you take from the
There,
fry
there's
machine to the hamburger machine. You don't change that.
there is flexibility in the McDonald's system in certain places. What you said is right, and there is a certain amount of freedom in certain places where it's able to be done. But anyway, I understand your question. Let me
Yeah.
answer you.
Yeah, please.
So when you recruit, you have to say to people, if you like doing this valuable product or this valuable service for this market, and you want to be part of creating something bigger than any one person, this is the place you want to work, and these are the values, and these are our culture. Okay, that's the starting point. One of the companies that I'm heavily involved with believes that education is the magic bullet, and we think we have the solution. And their vision is to change the way education works in this country. We, on average, have a 20 to 25-year tenure of employee. And it's because they're connected. So how do you create that culture? You have to understand that there are four basic types of culture. And this comes from Dov Seidman. He defined it better than I ever could, but it's all part of corporate life cycle theory. You've got the first culture is called chaos. Oh my God, do whatever you want. The second culture is military, command and control. The third culture is rules-based, and the fourth culture is should. He calls it the should culture. I call it the do what's right culture. Now, all four of these live in every organization. The question is, how much of the time you spend working are you living in one of those cultures? You want chaos to be as close to zero as possible. Many organizations, and you are alluding to this with McDonald's, it becomes command and control. Do what I say, don't ask questions, don't break the chain. All of those have value, right? So, like, we had a client who had a problem happen. Look, what do you do when you have a flood? When I say chaos, I don't mean people are crazy. I mean, every rule goes out the door. Fix the flood. Fire, chaos, fix the flood. The rules don't matter, put the fire out. You got to be able to do that when it's necessary. There are things that are sensitive, people's personnel records, their health records, their financial records. That stuff has to be controlled carefully. That's command and control, hard, harsh, inflexible rules. Where we live most of the time is in rules-based. And the problem with rules-based is that you have to say to yourself every time you're about to make a decision, am I within the rules or am I outside the rules? And it's always, I'm close. Am I on the line? Am I inside the line, or am I just outside the line? And how far am I outside the line? And should I ask for permission or forgiveness? Or maybe because of the circumstance, you get it. I mean, I could sit here for 20 minutes and think about where I am. It's a waste of time and there's no right answer. Diversity is critical to long-term success because it brings multiple perspectives. When you have people from multiple backgrounds, you have fewer shared values. When you find the common values that everyone shares, that becomes the foundation for your culture. And when you build the organization, you have to identify those shared values and recruit to them.
Mhm.
That way, everybody has a set of values that are all identical and all what I call shoulds, or the right thing to do. So the trick is getting those values clear and saying to everybody, 80% of your decisions need to be you doing what you know is the right thing to do. Forget the rules. Use your values. When somebody says to you, is this right or is this wrong? You know immediately. You don't have to think about it. That's what you want people to do. It saves time, it saves energy. And when you don't need rules, it saves management time. It makes everything move more smoothly through the organization. How do you create an understanding of those values? I was actually fired from a very large client for this. One of the founding partners in a law firm, we were doing, it was a $250,000 retreat. We were doing this workshop session, and he said, how in the hell am I supposed to get these new interns and these new count lawyers to come in and understand what our values are? And I said, it's easy. You know what it is too. And he said, no, I don't. So there's 25 people in the room, and I'm sitting here arguing with one of the named partners. And I said, stories. When I say to you, we are constantly learning, I have to have a story to tell you what that means. Here's my story. I'll give you $500 a year to spend on anything you want. One of my IT firms, one of my programmers came to me and he said, I want to use that money for something, but it isn't technology. Is it okay? I said, what is it? He said, I want to go to a cooking school. I want to go to who's the French chef?
Julia Child.
Julia Child. I want to go to a Julia Child's cooking school. Can I do that? This is an IT company. I said, sure. You know the rules. You go to the class, you get $500, whatever it costs. If it costs less than that, whatever, we'll pay for it. You just have to come back in 3 weeks and tell us what you learned. I said, okay. That's living your value. That's, we are constantly learning. I'm going to pay you to learn. I'm going to pay you above your wage. And I don't care what it is, because learning is what's important to me, right? So then what you have to do is you have to take away the fear. You have to create a penalty-free environment, which means I bring a group of people together, direct reports with their manager, with the manager's boss, and however far up the food chain I have to go to get the people to believe that leadership supports this. And I have to say, you have to operate based on these values. Tell me where that's going to be a conflict. I just did this a couple of months ago with an ag firm, a farming water company. What do we do when we have a landowner who tells us they want us to do this and it's against the rules? I said, tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. Pull out the values, pull out your mission statement, tell them what it says, and tell them that you're not going to do it because it doesn't meet this value of fairness, right? You want special treatment, we're not going to do it. I'm going to call the GM and I'm going to get you fired. Call a GM. And then I turn to the GM and I say, what are you going to do when you get that phone call from that landowner? He's going to say, I'm going to tell the landowner he's wrong. That's how you do it. And you do it in small bits and pieces, but let me thread some of these things together. That's communication. Right? That's communication. And that's why communication fits in. And you don't need it until you get to it. It's critical all the time, but it's the difference between success and failure as you get older, as you get more mature, as your organization matures.
These are great. These are great. Real actionable. I love it. They're real and actionable. So what I heard was, so there's chaos, military rules, and should chaos we want to get
do the right thing.
Do the right thing. So chaos we want to minimize.
Right. You have to be able to, but you want to minimize it.
But you want to minimize it. You don't want fires, so you don't want to have to put them out, but you want to be able to put them out.
Right.
Military, there are situations where you need to be military. And a McDonald's franchise is a really good example of that. You're talking about 16-year-olds running your company. You've
Right.
got to be military, right?
On some things.
Or you're talking about the finances. You've got to be. It has to be done this way. Okay. Then you've got the rules, and sometimes you've got to have rules. And you have to look at the rules. Just like you were talking the story you were talking about with the landowners, right? These are rules. Okay,
Right.
if you have a franchise, there are rules. You
Right.
have you have a system. You have a particular system you follow for your customers. There's rules in that system. System is basically a group of rules, right? What I'm hearing though is that of all of these, the do what's right is where the culture really is strongest. And that's where, while yes, we've got these other things, but let's do what's right. In other words, it's not about taking out the trash. I'm going to go back to that one. It's
Right.
not about taking out the trash. I want to keep the office clean. So
Right.
let's keep the office clean, whatever it
Right.
takes to keep the office clean. Does that mean I might need to clean windows? Yeah. It might mean I need to clean windows. Does that mean I need to vacuum? Yes. It means I need to vacuum, but to do the right thing, and you have to establish what that right thing is, which is what I
Right.
heard you say. That's where the values are. What's the right thing? I had an experience very recently with somebody I was looking at partnering with. And one of the challenges came up with is that my value is I expect you to respond to me. That's a very important value to me.
Right.
And it's a very, very important value to our organization. And we'd go like 2 weeks without hearing from this person. I'm going, I can't live with that. I just can't live with that. So
Right.
that to me, if I've got an employee like that or a partner or whoever it is or a customer, I'm going to be challenged with that because we've got this. If we're a values-based organization, that's what I'm hearing. We're a values-based organization. We have to live those values. And then the way to communicate those values, of course, is the way to communicate anything, which is through stories.
Right. And I do want to say on this responsiveness issue, it comes up all the time. And there's a really good argument to be made for having it live in the do the right thing world and in the rules-based world. And sometimes you have to do a bit of both, but you cannot expect people to respond to you in a timely manner if your sense of timely and theirs is different. And when it comes to email, it's really important because I've been in the technology. I bought my first business computer, in 1973. So I've owned 3 IT companies. I've literally been in this industry for 51 years. I hate technology. That's not the point. The point is, email was created specifically for the purpose of allowing multiple individuals, 2 or more, to communicate with each other at times most convenient to each participant. It had nothing to do with urgency. I've been in companies where you'll have a guy in an office, email a guy in an office 30 yards down a hallway and get pissed off because they don't respond fast enough.
Yeah.
Let me give you one other piece of culture here, because this is a big deal, I think. I've told this story many times. One of the companies that I involved with was in the process of maturing out of adolescence into adulthood. And individual departments had freedom to buy office supplies. They found that there was a lot of excessive money, over budget spending on office supplies. Turns out everybody was buying backup stock for themselves. They changed the rule. They said, we're going to centralize office supply purchases. W-2 staff who had been around for a long time got really angry. It's like, oh, we're gonna be babies now. We got to be monitored. So I came in and I talked to him. And I've done this for many companies, but this one is the start of it. And I said, and this company had been incredibly successful, not in revenue, but in other ways, in delivering value. And I said, I want you to understand something. You came to this organization because of this idea, and you guys took this idea and you made this thing work. You made it flower, you made it bloom, you made it blossom, and you grew and you expanded. And as you got bigger, you noticed how you got more complex, how it became more difficult to do everything. The complexity made it very, very hard for people to do things. So rules started being put in place. And right now, you're part of a shift where some rules need to be put in place in areas that are causing other people grief, and you don't feel that grief, but it's causing it, and it's causing friction, and because of that, you're losing flexibility. So I want you to know that your service is appreciated, and it's time for you to go. Go do what you did for this company at some other company, or shut up and get on board and find a way to take us to the next level. Because this is your fault. Don't you blame management. If you hadn't done such a good job of helping this company succeed, we wouldn't be where we are now. This is of your making. Don't you point the finger at anybody else. And if you don't like it, go. Otherwise, get on board. There was an insurrection of 30 people with 3 ringleaders. Within 2 hours of my leaving, all 3 of them had come in and apologized and said, we're sorry, we're on board. That's the kind of culture that you can create if you have clarity of purpose, people understand the critical nature of consistent performance, dependability, not just to the customer, but to their coworkers, to the direct reports. You got to treat your direct reports the same way. They have to be able to depend on you when you tell them something. You want to depend on them when they tell you, give them the same respect the other way. And same thing going up the chain. And then you've got to be engaged. You've got to care about what's going on. And when you care, you pay attention, don't you? If you don't care, you're not going to pay attention. You just said, how do you teach them how to do that? I had an engineer who worked for me, and he got to a point where he was so proud of being able to go out on a job and come back with a new order for a new project. He like would almost wet his pants. He's like, guess what? I just brought in $40,000 from so-and-so. Brand new project. I saw it. I told him about it. I didn't ask him to do that. That wasn't part of his job description. He was trying to help us achieve our long-term goals. It's a different approach. That's what this book is about. And when the world changes, this education company I'm with, when COVID hit, take a wild guess, maybe not so wild, of how many classroom hours we lost. This is a charter school. It's an independent study school, commonly referred to as homeschooling. But teachers go out to the homes. How many classroom hours of training do you think we lost?
Well, if it were the public schools, I'd say you lost almost all of them.
Yeah. Well, we lost 0 because we've been doing distance learning for over 30 years. We know how to do it. There you go. And we have to take the same tests and pass the same certification levels of every regular site-based public schools. We don't get a free ride. Most people don't understand charter schools.
Right.
You can do this stuff. Disney, when COVID hit, Disney's primary source of revenue was what? Theme parks. What happened when COVID hit? Large groups of people can no longer gather.
That's right.
They literally had the front door locked on their primary source of revenue. Oh my God, don't tell me that I can't fail because of a natural disaster. No, you can't. If you're the leader, it's your job to foresee the future and build your durability into your organization. You know what the leadership team did? Most people don't think about this. That stock plummeted for the first 3 quarters of the year. By the 4th quarter, the leadership team had decided what they were going to do is zero in on all their content. And it wasn't until then that the Disney Channel online and streaming became their primary focus. And by the end of 2021, they had one of the greatest turnarounds of the top companies, top international companies in the world. They never lost a dime. Think about that. That's an organization committed to purpose and performance. And if you don't think they can engage their people, everybody in that organization is a team member. It works. It's easy. It's just it's not complicated. It's not complex. It's mousetrap. It's a bunch of pieces, but when you put them together right, you know what they're going to do. There's not a lot of guesswork, right? That's the difference between complex and complicated. Complex, I do something and there's 10 possible. That's chess. Chess is complex, right?
Right.
There's 10 ththings that can happen. This is simple. Do this, do this, do this, do this, and you'll get that.
That's right. So
And yeah, I'm passionate about it.
I love it. This has been awesome, Larry. The book is Businesses Don't Fail, They Commit Suicide. Larry Mandelberg. Larry, any final words, and then tell us where people can find you.
Yeah, when I did my research, the number one reason business people told me that they were either struggling or had struggled was because of finances. And I want everybody to understand that that's a lame excuse. Finances are always a lagging indicator. Problems with money are because you made a bad decision beforehand. Don't let money become your excuse. Money is just a tool. Use it wisely. If you can remember one of two things, Mandelberg, I'm all over the internet, podcast posts, stuff like that. I'm not on Facebook. Just Google Mandelberg. It's mandelberg.biz, as in business, mandelberg.biz. Or if you just go to Amazon and Google business suicide, you'll find me. I'm really pretty easy to find.
Great. Final words. Thank
you. May every one of your listeners have at least one revelation from this. And you can read the preface, the intro, and the first 2 chapters for free on Amazon under Look Inside. Check it out.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Larry. Thanks everybody for watching and listening to the Wealthability Show. You please press like, please check us out on social media. There's lots of great education with amazing guests just like Larry on the Wealthability Show, or go to wealthability.com. Remember, when we get more education, we establish our own culture of learning, as Larry was talking about, we're always going to make way more money and pay way less tax. We'll see y'all next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.